so much has been going on. I haven't really made too many videos. I'm not sure why either. You know, sometimes you just don't have anything to say. Sometimes you just got nothing to say. I have got something to say now. It's just that working all the time with different types of players and mentally being in different spaces. So sometimes I'm feeling very certainly one way. Another time, you know, you kind of a bit discombobulated, especially if you've been moving around a lot. So now that I've had a little bit of time to settle mentally, I've become a little bit more reflective, or I have a chance to be more reflective in the work that I'm doing and the players that I'm working with. And as always, I've had a chance to observe my environment, and I was kind of taught by one of my bosses about planning with players in terms of, you know, what type of player are we looking to develop, or to support the development of, you know. So because I'm working with different groups of players again, it means that you always kind of, you start again with your learning and with your recall of what you should be learning, in terms of with those players, what are these players teaching you, and how do we mould them? And yeah, they do need moulding. It's not a case of, oh, the game will be the teacher. No, they don't know the game, so we have to do some moulding. So even though I am really keen on allowing players to express themselves and giving them responsibility and ownership, I love doing that. I do that a lot. Sometimes I have to admit, and I do say it a lot to people, that that's my style of working with young players especially. There is still a clear structure to it. And one of the things that I think is very, very important for a player is the mentality. And I know that so many people would say that, so many coaches would make that remark. But the reality is, how do we embed that in our work with players day to day? You know, if we're seeing these players 5 times a week, 3 times a week, or you're interacting with them regularly, then you've got to be quite calculated about that interaction and the outcome that we're looking for from these players. Even if it's not a case of, oh, they're gonna follow the pathway all the way up to our first team and they're gonna become professional, we are still developing young people. You know, what do we need? Resilience. Resilience is what we need. So me, as a very average player, when I was playing, very average player, and I was unknowingly smart enough to expose myself to a lot of opportunities to grow and to harness my resilience. I didn't really rely on my mum a great deal for getting me to where I needed to go, like to training sessions or to games. Obviously, not every player can be in that position because you might live in the middle of nowhere. so you need to get a ride, you know. But I was very independent from an early age of my playing experience. You know, not necessarily an early age biologically, but as a player, literally from the bat, straight off, I was very independent, and I connected strongly with my new family, which was my team, my teammates. I learned how to exist with them and not wait for things to be explained to me by someone else, but by an adult, by a senior person. I became a teammate quite well, I think. I liked that transition. I enjoyed being part of a team. I wasn't exceptional at anything that I tried to do, but resilience was very important. And I think that those opportunities given to me by my environment through the game, I learned the importance of showing my toughness and how I could cope. So, right now we're working with players who are completely different to how it might have been when we were playing. If you were playing 10 years ago, it's different now. If you were playing 5 years ago, it's different now. And obviously, I was playing a long time ago. So we need to have that still. We still need that. We still don't want players to miss out on opportunities because they don't have resilience, because they don't have the ability to stay the course. They can't stay doing something because it's too hard, it's too challenging, it's out of their comfort zone. We need players to still experience situations which expose them to developing a thicker skin. Not anything like hazing, not like initiation tasks or anything, but the conversations that we have with them and our own reactions as well. So obviously I'm from a different generation to the people that I'm working with. It's usually the case, do you know what I mean? I'm old. But we've got to be smart. We're in charge. These coaches, we're in charge. So as a coach, I need to find a way to manufacture that experience I had when I was training, at a training session, in the snow, and my teammate has gone in to win the ball, I've gone in to win the ball, I've gone in with my head, my teammate's gone in with her foot. And I finished the session out, we've got to finish the session. I didn't want to leave to go to the hospital to get the stitches for my mouth. Finished the session, as soon as the session finished, off I went to hospital to get my stitches in my mouth because I got kicked in the face and it was painful and there were lots of lip floating about. Would that happen now? Yeah, we've got a safety element with players, obviously it depends on the age, but maybe not that extreme with a situation, but the concept of that situation and applying it to our moments now with our players. Are we helping to develop tough players who can cope? I got stepped on. Yeah, you will get stepped on. The referee didn't give the right decision, it was the referee's fault. Can we control that? No. So how do we react to a decision that you think, oh, it's the referee's fault? How did you react? You shut down. So we need you not to shut down at decisions that you don't like. How do we inbuild that? How do we develop that skill set in that player to be able to cope? Player gets pushed, they go down. At training or at a game, they go down. How do we react to that? And how do people observing translate our reaction? So often, if a player that I'm working with goes down injured, or supposedly injured, often I react really slowly. And I can see sometimes players turn to look at me like, oh. Parents might do the same thing. I'm not often in an environment where players and parents are kind of separated. I know that some clubs, they don't allow parents to watch the sessions, but I don't think I've ever worked in an environment like that. So you would have parents watching, they might even just be watching from their car, but they'll be observing something, So my style and my way of helping the groups that I work with recognise that we need them tougher. The game requires it. I will have those little conversations once in a while, not too much. I try to be quite subtle about it because I think it's such an important element to how we function as sports people, as competitors, as lovers of the sport. You know, like we're not all going to be in that top percentage of athletes or as players or as coaches, but we do need to strive towards it. And the attribute that you need is the mentality to strive. And you can't do that if you can't cope. You have to be able to cope. How do we build that into our players? We start. That's how we build it. We start. So if I've planned my year of training sessions, then I know, right, I need these players to understand how to cope with being fouled, infringements, decisions that they don't like. So build it into your training session. Build it in there. Create a game where there's going to be decisions that go against them. It's not a novel idea. It's not my new idea. This is something that I know that some coaches do, and it's a great idea. I think it's brilliant. I've done it myself. Then you might want to be really subtle and really mess with players in a game. You know, like really mess with their heads. That might be a challenge. Then you might want to be really obvious. So you've got different ways of communicating how we build that player and how we help to develop that mental toughness, that grit. It might be that you send them a couple of videos on the topic. Not overload them, but do it. Start. It might be that you have the conversation. Do it. Start. It might be that you have workshops once a month, or bi-monthly, or bi-weekly. Bi-weekly might be a bit too much, but depending on the age of the players and the culture that they're used to, if you don't start building that resilience, that layer, that awareness of, hey, there are players that you're competing with that have got holes in their shoes, that have had to walk to training, that have had to get the bus. There are players out there that you're training with who are on a scholarship or who don't have the funds to get the latest anything. They're working, everyone in their family's working, they're working from an earlier age than you. Not everyone's the same. And by the way, you are going to get stepped on. I've said to players so many times, Google players' feet. Look at their feet. And they're like, I'm not going to come running every time you go down, and I'll explain to you why. I've been stepped on so many times and I'm not that tough. But I've had to be that tough. If I can be that tough, you can be that tough. And in fact, the game requires it. How do we build mental toughness? How do we start the conversations? How do we start the workshops? Planning our yearly plans, our periodisation, conversations with parents and players, maybe at the mid-term reviews or the end of season reviews or things that you set out at the start of your year. How do you do that? How do you start that conversation to develop that aspect of a player's performance? Because the psychosocial aspect of that player is hidden. You can't always see it, but it's there and it plays such a big part. So how do you start? You start. That's how you start. So important. And it's the stuff that I've been thinking of for the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to start. In fact, I started a couple of weeks ago. I lied. I started a couple of weeks ago.
1, 2, 3, 4.